Now, let me ask you, is this little safe working conditions, is that just, that's not part of either of the stories, right? It's just.
No, I actually just took that from the contract. I don't know what Denise Bukowski is the one who helped me get the book out. And she thought, I showed her some of the contract and she said, oh, why don't you just sort of put them in too? They really don't all link with the next story, but they give a general, it's a different style and whatnot. And you can see that there are rules and you can get things from them, but they don't really connect with the writing of the story. And it's all done in the afterward thing, trying to make this like seeing as a collection of linked stories. They really aren't chapters in the sense, in the way a novel is, the chapter, there's a flow from one to the other, but I've tried to make it so the sequence is a timing of going up the coast. So the position of some of the stories had to change when I realized that this one was, that I thought was further up, was to get it in the right geographical location, I had to go in where it is now, So sort of it was originally sort of on the third day and not so close to the beginning. Yeah.
So do you want to give us the title and set it up for us?
Yeah, Some Trip This Is Going to Be, and that is the original title too. Some trip, this is going to be. There's a way of saying, oh, some trip, this is going to be. There's different ways of seeing it. Yeah, but yeah, so we better hop to it since this takes almost half an hour, I think. I think it may be the longest story in the sequence. I don't know, but I kind of suspect it is. The afternoon is supposed to be my time off, but that doesn't mean it's my time off. Because I'm slow, I couldn't get the potatoes peeled for supper before 9 a.m. when I had to scrub the mess and galleys so the decks would be dry by the time the man came in for early mug up at 9:45. And because that took me longer than it should, simply because I don't know how to wring the mop out properly, even after Coco showed me how, and I kept hitting my leg with the wooden squeegee me doodle. Coco got behind, but not noticeably because she can do anything fast. But she did get behind in terms of her baking, which she says is usually in the oven when the boys come in for mug up. So lunch today, they didn't have pies, for dessert that is, but tapioca pudding or fish eyes, as they call it. And the guys insisted we have morning mug up with them. It's your right, they said. You got to do it. So Coco and I did. And after I washed their dishes and filled the honey jar and peeled carrots and onions and washed out the galley buckets and made breadcrumbs and fetched cans of peas, tomatoes, and corn for Coco and set up for lunch. During lunch, I couldn't peel, and then I had to do the dishes again. And when they were finished, I ate with Coco and Poopy, who were talking about Roy, half the crew, and about Thor, their regular skipper, the one I met in the Empress, who was suspended because of Betty crawling around naked in port. That's why she's off now, said Coco. She knows Roy will watch every move she makes. Just run wrong one, and that's it. Game over. So anyway, here I am now on the poop deck of a rolly ship with a bucket of small, unpeeled, ice-setted potatoes between my legs and a large cake tin on my lap for the peelings that every so often I dump over the side. On my right is an enamel bucket, which has a few peeled potatoes in the bottom and is 2/3 full of water. I drop a white nick peel spud in it, pick up an unpeeled one, and wonder how long it'll take me to get enough done for supper. We're entering a wide bay, a huge curve in the sea's edge. There's a small clearing far off. The light and land is golden, surrounded by dark green Douglas fir West Coast rainforest. The Nooka begins slowing down, and I get up to empty the peelings. The sea behind turns white as the engine reverses, creating yards and yards of foam on huge, at least 20 feet high, slate green waves. Quite a way off is a long open boat right up on top of a wave. It slides down the wave, is hidden. Then something yellow, a blotch of red, and a bright green triangle disappear. The dot of yellow comes up first, then the large green, and the smaller red. They seem to float above a wave for a moment or so, then they slide down, disappear again. In a few seconds, they slowly come up a wave that is 30, maybe 40 feet high. I can't figure it out. The yellow is above and the other two a toque or something. I really should be finishing these potatoes. I'm stalling. That's all I'm doing, putting on. I know what I'll do. I'll race to get them done before they get here. I'll pick up the box, knocked over by the ship's movement, and sit down on it to peel into the empty cake pan. Faster than before, but not fast enough. Wish they peeled themselves. Lefty comes out of the mess, stands over me, and complains. I didn't watch the kettle. If you're up, he says, you gotta keep checking the kettle. That's my job too? Sure, he says, it's everyone's. There wasn't enough water to make coffee. He chomps a raw onion sandwich made of raisin bread, butter, onion, HP sauce. Where are we? I say suddenly. Near Cluse. Gonna pick up a couple of interports. A couple of what? Interport passengers. They'll get off at Banfield. Well, I say, why aren't we moving? Because it's too shallow. There's no dock. Can't you see that? Oh, of course. He leaves and I peel several more potatoes. When I get to dump the peelings, I see the cabinless gray boat. It doesn't seem any closer. I think there is a kid in the middle, standing up of all things. I wonder what for. The yellow's more muted now and blunter. It's funny how sharp the light is on the coast, how suddenly it switches. I leave the railing and look into the enamel bucket. At least 8 inches of the butter is ready. And I sit down and peel even faster than a few moments ago, yet I don't seem to be getting any more done because I keep missing spots. But finally I finish and look over the side again. The boat's much closer. There is a kid standing wearing a yellow toque, and there's a dog and a woman in a red sweater holding something, and a man in a green jacket steering the boat. The yellow and green against the green of the waves, against the yellow and green of the land, are like a Cezanne, but the sky is like a car. I race into the galley to put the potatoes, etc., away so I can go forward and stand near the winch to watch them come aboard. But as I turn into the passenger officer's lounge, where the air smells of bleach and the chairs are all up on the bench, don't walk! Just washed it! Screeches Poopy. I could barely see her head peeping out from the table. Go above, go round. Okay, I say, and turn back. Such a call and such button eyes. I pass through the galley. I wonder why she's working on her time off. Pass the mess out of the deck and out onto the deck and then up the ladder. Maybe it's the only time she can do it. Past the sooty flag and the captain's quarters. Hasn't come down to eat yet, said Poopy at lunch. Past the back corner of the dark green wheelhouse. Then the front, all glass. Hal nods out at me from behind the huge wheel, and a lanky, almost blonde man smiles at me, then quickly looks down at his clipboard. He opens the wheelhouse door, quietly introduces himself as Don, and when I ask him what he is, he tells me he's the first mate. He puts on a navy blue cap and leaves to go down the ladder to the main deck. I move to the corner and brace myself by holding onto the gritty pipes and keeping my legs apart, but my uniform blows up. So while I support myself with one hand, I pull my skirt down in between my legs with the other. Feet now together, I notice the man below are having no trouble standing, and they aren't even holding on at anything. Bebo and Jock are just waiting by a stack of lumber near the edge of the hold and are talking. Lefty is leaning on part of the winch and is smoking a cigar. There's something different about them. I can't identify it, but I can see it in the way they're talking and the way Lefty's leaning, less belligerent, slightly subdued. The boat is just a few yards off. The boy, around 8, is still standing even though the water's rough. The woman, slightly squat, sits, holds a baby. The 3 are no Chalmers, strong cheekbones, beautiful. They look proud and quite different from the Coast Salish people I grew up around. In front of the man are 3 cardboard boxes. He steers the craft alongside, tries to steady it and maintain position, but a wave smacks the side and the boat almost tips over. The kid doesn't move, just stands, looking ahead. The next wave looks like it's going to swamp them, but the man is able to turn the prow in time to face it. He shouts a word or two to Jock and Bebo, waves to Lefty and Dawn, who tells Lefty something. Lefty starts the winch, winds the slings, 2 sets of wires with pipe bases, like long, narrow seats of swings, except the wires all come together at the top. Can you get on these, lass? Jock shouts. The woman looks up at him, says nothing. Jock then grabs both pairs of wires in separate hands and stands on the pipes. Lefty lifts him to show her how. Jock's arms are out high in a loose U formation. He lets go one set, does a fat little dance, giggle at the jig, but the woman doesn't think it's funny, and neither would I if I had to get on the slings. She talks excitedly to a man who can do nothing because he has to do everything he can just to keep the vessel upright and in the same position. She won't come, he shouts. She says she won't come. Jock jumps onto the deck. He and Bebo quickly place a wooden loading flat between the metal pipes. Then Lefty winds the flat up over the side very quickly, jerks, drops it down. The loading flat, 5 feet by 4 feet by 6 inches, swings over towards the boat and almost hits them. The boy falls, holding the dog's head down. The woman and man duck. Then it swings back over them again. Then it comes toward them for the 3rd time. The kid grabs it. Lefty tries to lower the flat to a position where they can step onto it, but a wave hits it from underneath. The man gestures with his head for the woman to get on. She won't. It's just not possible. I don't blame her. It isn't safe at all. She clutches her baby and stares stony face at her boy. Then the boy grips one of the 4 wires. He swings, leaps up, down. He's on. He scrambles to get near the center of the flat, but another wave hits it and one side tips it into the water. The flat is the pallet, He holds onto the board, goes down, under. His little yellow tube floats on the green water, but he's still holding. I can see his fingers, now his lower arm and shoulder. Finally, it must be all of 6 seconds, but seems like minutes. Lefty manages to get the pipe on the other side loose. The loading flat then splashes into the water and floats. The boy pulls himself up onto it. Bebo and Jock are yelling, keep down, keep down. The other pipe loosens itself as the flat moves away from it. The kid just lies there on the great boards as the narrow pipe moves over him. Then the flat pushed up by the wave moves towards the note cup. In a second or so, it smashes our side, then it bobs back toward their little gray boat. Hold on, shouts Bebo. Don't panic. Stay put. Lefty winds the empty slings down up to Beeble, who jumps onto them. Then Lefty winds them, and Beeble up over the railing, down and over the side, down in the direction of the boy. The sling jerk as Lefty tries to position them right above the flat. Beeble swings above the kneeling boy once, then twice. Finally, with one hand holding onto the flat, the kid grabs the pipes near Beeble's foot. Beeble lets go of one set of wires and squats, reaches the boy and grabs him under the arm. He pulls, and the kid scrambles from the boards onto the slings. Beeble moves out of his crouch, simultaneously trying to balance the slings and the kid, and almost slips it into a wave, but doesn't. He moves to the end, holding the wires in one hand and clutching Beeble's arms with the other, while Beeble, maybe 160 pounds or so, tries to redistribute his weight and change the almost 40-degree angle of the pipes back to 180. Once the pipes are almost parallel to the ocean, Lefty slowly, very slowly, begins to wind the slings up. I look at the woman with the baby. She has almost no expression. She must be too frightened to show anything. I would be. Finally, after what feels like 5 minutes, they clear the railing and Jock helps them, steadies the slings, then down they step onto the deck. The kid stands there all wet, all smiles, listens to what Beeble and Jock say to him, looks over to the side to his mum, or the woman I take to be his mum, and motions her to do what he did. She looks scared. The man keeps moving the boat back and forth, trying to keep it out from the Nootka, but close. The loading flat is drifted away. The woman, what can they do? She sits there and waits as Beeble gets onto the slings again, is raised again, clears the side, and comes down toward her. She looks at him, expressionless, doesn't move, doesn't say a thing. The man says something to her. She shakes her head. Beeble says something. The man translates. She's sitting. She clutches one set of wires, then very reluctantly leans forward to lift the blanketed baby up to Beeble, who cradles it in one arm while he balances the slings and tries to steady them with his legs. She lets go and turns in the tossing craft. Beeble swings the pipes right under her bum. She grabs the wires with one hand, the pipes with another, and sits on them. A wave strikes her feet as the slings swing out from the boat. 2 waves away, a much larger one is coming toward her. Beeble is trying to get the slings balanced and parallel for hoisting. The first smaller wave arrives and goes under her, then the next. Just 2 seconds before the large one is about to hit, Beeble manages to balance the pipes and immediately Lefty begins to hoist them up. Red sweater, frightened face, arms rigidly clutching metal. She looks tiny against the sky and water, yet there's something powerful about her. Beeble, who seems small, cuddles her infant. His leg, shoulder press and brace against each other. His leg, her shoulder press and brace against each other. The 3 are higher than the deck railing when a male voice close to me shouts, "What do you think you're doing?" Crew members only are to ride the gear. He's mad. It has to be the skipper, and he's really mad. But I don't have to look to tell that. Even though I've done nothing wrong, I disappear across the upper deck and down the ladder along the side deck. He has a huge wart on his ear, a pug nose, a voice like my grade 4 teacher's when he blew up at our class. Not a large man. I walked past where I was peeling the potatoes, which seems like forever ago. He means it, never again. Past Coco's cabin, mine. We don't go in. How does such an ordinary afternoon turn into this? I pass the canned goods cupboard and engine room entrance and step into the worn mess. Coco's sitting there, legs up upon the red bench, a white mug of coffee on a green table. What's happening? She says, without removing the cigarette from her mouth. The captain's mad. The guys tried to get the interports on using a loading flat, but I got smashed by the wave. And the little boy crawled on and almost drowned, but he's on and clung on and slow down, she says. You're talking too fast. Oh, relax. I'll get you a coffee. I follow her to the galley and hang there at the entrance. Don't want to leave or be left. I unpin my long wet hair as it bends over the back, as she bends over the black stove to pour the fresh coffee into a mug. I feel like a little girl who's run home to mommy. He means it. Never again. I knew, Coco says, something had to happen when I saw the guys miss their mug up. Bet the old man had his finger in that. I guess so, I sputter. I can see that all I can see is the captain's jaw and the woman's tear, but now I know why he left. He was fussing about the kettle. The men wanted a mug up while they were waiting for the boat. Coco, you should have seen the mother get on the slings. She had to stand up in their boat, which was tilting back and forth and each way almost rolling it over, and she had to lean over and reach up to give Bevo her baby, and then she had to turn around with the boat going like this. My hands and fingers are stretched out as high and as wide as they will go. It's as if I'm tossing a giant ball from arm to arm and get the slings under her bum without even seeing them, and he's here at the galley entrance holding a little black book. But Coco doesn't see him because she's watching my arms. I look directly beyond her shoulder into his squinty eyes. Coco? She turns to him with her mouth open. I stare at a pot of potatoes on the steel counter near the stove. Did you authorize the crew to exchange coffee for salmon? Yes, she says. He writes a note in his little black book. Now Coco's going to get it. My insides tremble. I look from the pot to her, not frightened or defensive, just standing up like she does in her galley. That's not a regular procedure, he says. On this ship, it is, sir. Bartering is not allowed, he says. The captain, the salmon we get from the company's chandler is frozen and never should go whole. Company policy, he says. We get the best here, she interrupts. And each pound of coffee is exchanged for 3 pounds to 4 pounds of salmon. From now on, there's to be no exchange of ship supplies or anything without my prior permission. Is that understood? Yes, sir, she says, and it is only to happen when we are out of provisions, not as a normal procedure. Have I made myself clear? You have, sir, she says. Do you have anything else to say? He asks. I'd answer no if I were here. If I were her, but it's not my jurisdiction that's being questioned. Yes, she says. What? Perhaps, Captain, when you had some from the chandler, you will understand that for the company it's cheaper and for us it's much better to barter for fish. We're going by the book, he says. I understand. Thor didn't, we're going by the book, he says. I understand Thor didn't, and that led to difficulties. She doesn't say anything. He waits a moment for no answer and then leaves. Just as Coco puts my coffee down on the mess table, we hear a voice behind us from the galley. Lady? We turn round. It's the New Chelmsford boy. Could I have some water for my mother, please, lady? He says to me. Sure, I say, and I look at him. Soaking wet, all muscle. Would you like a coffee or tea? Just water, he says. And you? I ask. Nothing, he says. Nothing now. After I return to the mess, neither Coco nor I speak for a minute. She lights a crave an egg and inhales. I sip hot coffee, my fingers enjoying the warmth of the mug. Could I get the Interport some towels and blankets, I ask. No, she says. That's Poopy's job. You start doing that and you'll be in trouble. Not just with her, but with him. I don't say anything for a second or so. Ray frightens me, I tell her. But I like the way you stood up to him. Thanks, she says. He's only doing a job. I'm puzzled. She just accepts that. He's got orders to clean up this ship, and he's going to use every rule and every policy he can find to do it. Do you know what that means for us? She asks. No, I said, no. We just do our jobs. We don't let him control our time or ask us questions that are none of his business. That's why you didn't answer him? I asked. He's not going to hear any remark from me about Thor, and he won't hear anything from the crew either. If he asks me to pour him coffee, I say, he'll fetch his own, she says, licking her ashes. That's our regular procedure. We laugh lightly. Did I do enough potatoes? I ask her. Plenty, she says. I'll use what's left for the chowder in the morning, but there's no sense wasting your time peeling them when they're under 3 inches. Now, she tells me. I don't say anything. I didn't want to disturb her to wake her up to find out. The Nooka used to be a happy ship, she says. What did you hear about us around the Union Hall? Nothing, I say. I was only there twice. The fun ship, she says, but it seems some people don't like others having too much fun at work. You know what I mean? Yes, I say. But what happened out there just now wouldn't have been fun no matter who was here. Sitting on your ass again, says Beagle. You women sure got a soft touch. He tussles my hair as he passes. Some trip this is going to be, eh, kid? Some first trip for you. I can't believe it. Here I expect him to be grumpy and roaring around like Papa Bear. And here he is whistling in the galley as he pours himself some coffee. I raise my eyebrows to Coco, who shrugs. Then Jock steps in, thumbs in suspenders, which he snaps as he passes. He's not at all like an old man who's been told off by someone younger. Coco and I exchange a what's going on look. I can't guess, can you? Lefty steps in packing a cardboard box which he holds down so Coco and I could see inside. A large salmon, silver speckled, all smoky gray, rounded, firm flesh with eyes that look alive, caught in a gesture. 25 pounds, Lefty says as he opens it. White orangey coral, the most salmony salmon I've ever seen. Spring, Coco says, just beautiful. Her whole face glows, and Lefty struts into the galley to place the salmon on the stainless steel counter. Beeple comes out, puts his mug down next to mine, flips out the end chair between Coco and me, and sits down with the back of the chair facing the table. What's up, Coco says. That son of a bitch thinks he knows what to do. So we decided to fix him. We'll just do exactly what he says. What happened, said Coco. He's ordered us to use a gangplank, no matter what. But how could anyone get on? I ask, how could they get on? They couldn't, Beagle says. You saw what happened to the flat when we tried. Jock comes in with a pot of tea, an empty mug, buttered bread. He has to squeeze between Beagle in order to sit on the bench next to Coco, who has to slide over to Lefty's usual position to make room. There's no roads, Jock explains to me. The old life-saving trails through a rainforest, and it's no good for the sick. Seaplanes can't land because it's too rough. Small craft can't come in unless the swell is down. She could die, Bebo says, as he follows his book. As long as he follows his book. How is she? I ask. Sick, says Bebo. Any fool can tell she's in pain. But there's a doctor comes to Manville, and they'll bring in a seaplane to get her to the city hospital, if need be. Pours honey into his coffee and stirs it. I think she's going to make it, he says, but only because she's getting out in time. Thought the big one slipped away, did you? Shouts Lefty to Coco. He's standing at the galley entrance eating a sausage left over from breakfast. I did, says Coco. Got to meet the old man when he came in here to tell me not to let you guys exchange provision for salmon. Figured as much, says Lefty. Jack gave it to us after Ray left to check with you. Got a take on him? Asked Lefty. Too early to tell, says Coco. Sounds to me like he's from Nova Scotia. Maybe a plate of salmon will soften his heart. Nothing will soften him, says Bebo, but we'll pack in the overtime if he insists on following every rule. Why? I ask, because I don't understand. It's this way, says Bebo. If he don't give us our mug up when we're supposed to have it, we can't help it if a job takes longer than it should, can we? I nod yes, and shake no. He could have let us have it early. We were waiting, says Bebo. Then the company wouldn't have to pay extra. I'm still confused. The job didn't take us an hour. Jock says. But when we've missed the break we're entitled to, we're already into overtime. And then when finishing up takes even 5 minutes into the next hour, we get another half hour overtime. You understand? Uh-huh. I say, stick around. He says, you will. You're wrong, says Lefty. The way I figure it is we usually have mug up at 2:30, but the contract says 3. So when we work straight through and we get it late, the only thing that's broken is our normal procedure. If he or the mate had to wait till just before 4, then knocked us off, we wouldn't be getting any overtime for this afternoon at all. Bullshit, says Bebo. He's got to learn how we do things, and he can't order us to miss a break. Even Jan can see we should have had a break while we were waiting. While they're arguing, I lean over the table to get Coco's mug and then fetch us more coffee. Grab us a contract, Jan, says Lefty. In the desk, lass, says John. I put down our mugs and open the drawer of the little wooden cabinet, an orange scribbler, an airmail letter pad, a black book, a purple one, 2 C books, 1 Sports Illustrated. Beneath them, some white paper stapled. This, I say as I pull it out and shove the others back. Yeah, says Bebo, reaching his arm out to mine. That's it. He smiles. I give it to him. He holds it between his thumb and fingers. It's our Bible, by God, and the only one we got. There's so many problems with the story, and I thought it was perfect when I finished it.
Well, I was going to say the first time I read the book, I think that chapter is the one that stuck with me the most, because the description of the woman and her children trying to get onto the boat is just like your stomach is like up in your throat the whole time.
Oh yeah, you're
hearing this description, and and visually too. the red sweater and the little yellow toque and the way
Yeah,
that
yeah.
sort of the narration sort of like, you know,
Comes and
we
disappears.
approach
Yeah,
and you see those little details and
yeah.
but why do you say there are problems with it?
Well, um, I mean, it's not just like the palette, but like if I had known the word palette and described it at some place, then it would be a lot easier because I keep calling it the, you know, the boards, the this and that. But it is something that anybody who's lived anywhere near a port gets to see. Um, and there, it's just a simple thing that actually holds the slings, takes the weight of enormous number of things, and it's the only way to convey things from a dock to a to a ship's hold, and but it never occurred to me to go and find out this word. And maybe they called them the boards. I know it's quite possible they called them the boards, you know, because they are. It's just made of. It's just wood. Well, there's nails in it, but that's what it's made of. But it's a very useful piece of equipment that you can see in any dock that's carrying that has to do with freight. You know, like they and well, nowadays days they put like they put a whole train cars in, so maybe you'd see
Yeah.
less of it, you know. But we're talking of a smaller size thing. Yeah, this boat was originally a Norwegian fish packer,
Mm.
and so that was a mothership, and so the fishermen in Norway would gather fish, and they would take their fish to the packer, who had the ice available to then and perhaps even freezers or whatever to then take the whole things in, and it has a sister ship called the Uchuk, which was also a Norwegian fish packer. So it's almost an identical ship, and it ended up on the west coast of Vancouver Island too.
Hmm.
So these two ships would see each other, and you'd be able to find yourself. If you found yourself around one, you would then found your way around the other because the layout was similar, even though that the Uchuk carries much more passengers, and it's than the Texas Prince, which was my boat did. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. No, the thing is that there's a certain like I thought it was that this was a story that was really well done.
It is though. It is. It
And
is.
then
It's
when I read
so
it, and I think, oh damn it, like this is slipping up. And the original incident took place in November, so it was like really rough, so much rougher. But I've kept it
cold, I'm
in
sure
sequence.
too.
Here I've got the sun, and I mean you can have sun in the winter time too. In fact, I went once had sun on the day before Christmas when we're returning, beautiful sun. But I decided to in the sequence that it really had to get geographically, it makes sense to have this one before the Ukaluit story.
Mhm.
That's how that happened. And I'll probably then find out that I've got all that wrong. I hope not. It's a
Wow.
whole other world, and it was so close by, and I lived on the East Coast all my life until the point that I came to university. So it's sort of familiar, but it's totally unfamiliar. I mean, it was sort of brand new to me.
To clarify, you mean the east coast of the island, right?
Yeah, East Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should keep saying on the island because everybody's
Yeah.
the West Coast, and they really means sort of Qualicum and Victoria, Campbell
Yeah.
River and Courtney, but they're not really is not the west of the West.
Yeah. Not the real watery part of the world.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they're all really watery parts of the world, given the number of accidents that can occur in so many places, and yeah. And how important it is to be safe.
It seems to me that this story, there's some real emotional core
Yeah,
to the whole book in this story.
yeah. It's a larger one. It's not sort of centered on what Jan is doing. I mean, Jan is there in it, but it's not. Well, they're not all centered on Jan, but in that way, it's told through Jan's eyes.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, it's a very no. I mean, I still like it, and I like some of the lines are sort of just spot on, and yeah,
You read it beautifully too.
yeah.
Really got a sense of the rhythms and this sort of bob and sway
Mhm.
of the
Yeah,
boat. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I will say too, one of the things that I really liked is even though it's not told in the story,
Mhm.
um, for me at least, I got a real sense of tenderness, sort almost from Bebo as he's
Mhm.
cradling this little baby, and then
Oh
talking
yes, yeah,
about like how that woman might have died
yeah,
if they didn't not if they went by the book and couldn't get her on using a
yeah,
gangplank.
yeah,
Then like I think it goes about as far as it can for those characters showing concern and care.
yeah,
So but
yeah,
it doesn't there's it doesn't tell at all, like it just shows it in these very minute little strokes,
yeah.
so I love that. I think, yeah, it's so emotional, this story.
It
It,
is. Yeah. In fact, I'm sort of weeping from the inner eye at this
yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Just um, no, no, it is an emotional story, and it's got you can just see the tensions and but it's. I wonder if I sort of got it right in terms of the the getting on, and I thought, God, how could people be holding the baby, the thing, and how how and the strength he must have had to be and the in perfect sense of balance
Mm,
to be dealing with all of this because yeah.
yeah. But I love the scene that precedes that where they're just sort of standing around like mountain goats as the boats like
Yeah,
swaying and lurching, and they're not moving at all. They're just
yeah,
standing perfectly still. So you do have a sense that there's just sort of like confidence
yeah,
in their bodies as workmen to
yeah.
really be able to feel their way around it.
Hmm.